Good morning, Rabbi Sai. Lili Nishmasim Mirosirus Mordechai. Rabbi Sai, yesterday, I thought I was making this up. Shmuley Bernhout, his 29th anniversary. I said something to him. After shir, he says, I asked my wife, you're right. So here, I gave him a freebie today. We put an X on his 29. It was his 28th anniversary. If he would have said 28, I would have also called him out. But Lamaisa, shtickle bezayin. All right. In memory of my father, this is a Stefansky sponsoring. Jonathan Stefansky, Rabbi Socher ben Arab Moshe Yosef Chaim on his 9th yard side. Jonathan Stefansky and family. Parnas HaChodesh, Shia Greenfield, and Yossi Klein. Where's that? Here we go. This is from Jonathan. It's his dad's 9th yard site. Here's a very quick intro. Last year I had a huge chus to make a siyum shas on my dad's yard site. I know how proud my father would have been for that accomplishment. However, I'm sure he is excited to know that I've continued with your share and the tremendous pride in seeing the success of Stefansky. His Daf Yomi share. I'm sure he would have been a great fan of this year. My father's a remarkable, out-of-the-box person, born in Prague in 1933. Switzerland, France. If you're wondering, all Stefansky, I said this a few times, but for the new people, my grandfather and Jonathan's grandfather were brothers. 1 out of 10, there were 10 brothers that came from Switzerland. So that's why Jonathan is my second cousin. Bekitzer, he grew up in Borough Park, went to Telz, Nitra, then to the army, Korea. He had 2 Purple Hearts, and following a career in sales, he became a pulpit rabbi for over 35 years and was personally responsible for makar of tons of families to become frum Jews. Jonathan. All right. Yesterday, Avi Sherman gave me a very nice gift. I felt bad. Nobody mentioned this to me, but afterwards I realized maybe I wasn't so makar tova, so I pulled out an email that he sent me a few weeks ago that I didn't read. And here he is, Reb Avi Sherman. Does anybody know, is that his engagement? Just a few days ago, Sherman and Friedman family sponsored, I think it was him. And here's Yisrael and Kessler. That's one picture I want to show you. There's another one of Nachum Harvitz learning the daf in the middle of the highway, but he says the highway is closed because of an accident. Here goes. And finally, the Ron Kornbluth in JFK. There's a beautiful shul there. I didn't know. Did anybody know that there's a nice shul in JFK? Never knew about it. So here we go. That's the shul. All right. So today is Daf Chav Gimel, and we're holding Daf Chav Beis Amud Beis. So just to give you a quick overview of what's going to happen today, very, very simple sugya. And this goes with the theory. I don't know if it's my theory, but we'll go with the theory that many times the Gemara brings down things that are pretty obvious. The Gemara knows them, but the Gemara wants to review these beautiful halachas. And that's what we're doing. We're reviewing these unbelievable concepts. So real quickly, I want to tell you what's going to happen here. So don't get confused. It's very, very simple. The Gemara is going to go through, we're going to learn Arla, Truma, Nazir, Chadash, Shratzim, Chametz, and Chelev. All of these things have one word or the other. Either Lo Yoichal, Lo Yochel, which would mean that it's Asur Bahana according to Rebavo. All these things, how many did we list off here? 7. But so why is it Mutter Bahana? All these things are Mutter Bahana, even Chametz, according to Rabbi Yisrael Galili, Mutter Bahana. So why is it? Because in each and every pasuk there's a special word that says that you're allowed to use it. Lachem, Trumaschem, Nizroi, Lecha. That's the whole sugya. That's pretty much going to take us to Amud Beis. We're going to go through one by one, each and every one. The most complicated one is the first one. Not complicated, has the most things to it, but it's pretty simple. So the Gemara said that by Arla it says Loye Achel, and then it says you cannot benefit from any Arla, Varaltem, Arlosoi, Arelim, Loye Achel, that everything is Asr, even to paint with it, Asr, Asr, Asr. So we're holding Ve'elo hashta d'chsivi hanach kroi. So all the way in the bottom, last line, second to last line. Ve'elo hashta d'chsivi hanach kroi. It says, Araltam or Losa, this is Isser Hana. Lochem Lamali. So what does the word Lochem come to tell us? At the end of the day, it's Asr Bahana. Everything's Asr Bahana on Arla. So what is Mutter Bahana? Lochem comes to say, it's really Asr Bahana, but there's something that's Mutter to you. What is Mutter? Everything's Asr. Look at the Sanya. Lochem, L'Rabbis is an Atua L'Rabbim. So if they plant a tree in the middle of, like we have over here in the Park Ayalon, you have pomegranate trees, it's for the rabbin. Come by and take. So that's also Aser. If it's planted for the Tzorcha Rabbin, there's no Arla. My Taima de Tanakama, what's his reason? D'chsiv unetatem l'yachid mashma, l'rabbim lo mashma, kasher rachmana lochem. So I would think unetatem doesn't apply to the tzibur, kasher rachmana lochem, lahavi is an atul l'rabbim. Even that which is planted for the community is also asur in arla. Rabbi Yehuda unetatem mashma ben l'rabbim ben l'yachid. The opposite. Unetatem means for everyone. V'lochem ben l'yachid ben l'rabbim mashma. And now we have another ribui. Tells us, yes. Oh my gosh. We got to take away his privileges. We're in base measures now. What? It's a baskol. Yeah, what are you asking? Okay, hold on a second. The whole point that you have privileges because I was bored at home. Okay, go. I'll explain myself in a second. Yeah, what? Go.
Why isn't it Tata Lashon? Why is it Mashma Yachid according to Tanakama?
Because it's talking to the Yachid. The whole Arla is to Yachid. It's not. The Torah is not talking to the general public walking down the park area alone. It's talking to Klal Yisrael as individuals. Like every mitzvah is directed to the individual. Said b'lashon Rabbim. So I think it's to the Yachid in the Lashon Rabbim. Not to the communal parks. We're talking about their own private gardens. No, that's the typical Arla. He's asking, if you didn't hear, because I hear him loud and clear, I don't know if the guys on YouTube here or the guys on Zoom, he's asking, what's the Havamin and Natatim means to a Yachid versus a Rabbin? Natatim is plural. Okay. But Noam, the whole point that you have these privileges, you and Avi and Menachem, is because I was by myself at home and I was bored. But now I have a lot of guys here. We don't really need it unless you mamish have a bomb or I make a huge mistake. Okay.
You know when we're not wanted.
You're slowly getting the hint. He's finally hopping. I had to go to the base measure for you to figure that out. Okay. Says the Gemara, "Unatata mashma bein l'Rabbim bein l'Yachid, v'lochem bein Yachid bein Rabbim mashma. Have a ribui, acha ribui." So this is another klal in the Torah. It's not one of the 13 midrash Torah, but it's a klal. Ribui acha ribui. If there's one inclusion after another, ve'in ribui acha ribui elo lemayet. So it comes to be mayet, and only a Yachid in this case would be asur and arla, and not the Rabbim. So if you plant a tree for the Rabbim, as they go by, they pick. Over here, by the way, who comes to pick the fruit here. Sometimes they see the Arabs coming. All of a sudden, Shalom Aleichem, they're in our neighborhood to get free fruit. But if it's for the Rabbim, pater for Marla, according to this Mandal Mar. Okay, here goes, smooth sailing. Varei Truma. The Rachmana Amar, v'chol zor lo yoichal kodesh. So anytime we have the opportunity, if you're new to Pesachim, we just started. I don't know if I showed this chart yet. It's one of the most famous ones. Truma. If you have a crop, you give Truma G'doila to the Kohen, about 2%. You can give whatever you want, but you give about 2%. Then you give Meiser to the Levi, and then the Levi in purple gives from his 10% that he got from the Yisrael, he gives 10%. So we're really talking about this here, Trumas Meiser, but there's a Hekesh to the Truma G'doila, so it really means everything. V'chol zar lo yoichal kodesh utnan Okay, so Yisrael has an Isser D'Oraisa to eat Truma. Yet it says, Usnan, Ma'arvim le'nazir b'yayin. We're going to get to this halacha in a second. We're going to skip it for now. That you're allowed to make an Eruv Tchumim for a nazir out of wine. Will Yisrael betruma? I can make an Eruv for Yisrael who cannot eat the food. What's an Eruv Tchumim? So going back, if you weren't with us for Eruvin, shame, mamish a shame. But a Tchum is that if I'm only allowed to walk 2,000 am in each direction from wherever I reside on Shabbos, if I put food in a certain place, that becomes my residence, and I could go from that food 2,000 am. But it has to be food that I could eat. It has to be a meal. I'm a Yisrael, I cannot eat Truma. So how could I make an Eruv out of Truma? So first of all, the Gemara's question is, you see that you're allowed to benefit from Truma. Even though there's an Issa D'Oraisa for Yisrael to eat Truma, I'm allowed to benefit from it. What's the reason that you could make an Eruv? Because I could be mevatel that Truma and say, I made a mistake, I want to use different fruit, something else. So Mamela, for that fruit, it's a good Eruv. The same would apply with the Nazir. A Nazir could also be shoyal on his Nazirus and then go to the Rav and say he made a mistake and he doesn't want to be a Nazir anymore, and he'll be able to drink the wine, and you can make a Tchum out of wine for a Nazir. Akopanim, you see that even though the Torah says by Truma, what's the Lashon? Lo yoichal. And lo yoichal, according to Rebbe Avo, means even hana. You're not allowed to have hana. And over here you see that you could have hana. You're allowed to make an Eruv out of it. Taisus points out real quickly before I'm asked the question, that we're not going according to when we're learning Eruv, and we came out sort of the maskana that the whole Tchum is only to perform a mitzvah. And mitzvahs lavna henos nitnu, like we mentioned yesterday, could you light a menorah with Isurei Hana, but it's not for your Hana. So here also says it doesn't go according to the Manda Omar that it's for a mitzvah. Okay, just a side point. Omar Apapa Shani Hosam Domakro Trumaschem. So here we go. Again, we're going to go one after the other. It's the same answer every time. That in the pasuk it says that you could use it. Special halacha in this pasuk. What's funny or not funny, we're going to go through every single one of these, and every single one says that you're allowed to use it. So then what can't you use? Everything is mutabahana. Each one has a different... So this one says, Trumas chem. It's yours. Do whatever you want with it. Have hana from it. Shalochem tiyeh. V'idach, and Chizkiah, who doesn't learn that the word yoichal means Isra hana, so why does he need the word Trumas chem? Trumas chem, the Chol Yisrael comment. No, it's just the way the Torah talks. You hear? No, I'm not saying this answers your question, but it's a lashon that the Torah uses to Klal Yisrael. Trumas chem. It's not yours, individual, plural, not plural, single. That's how we talk. It's what's the lashon? What did you say? No, I'm not talking about lashon b'nei adam, but in third person kind of. Trumas chem, yours. I'm talking to you, but I'm saying trumas chem. How's the Rav feeling? What's the good third person? Yeah, trumas chem, the Chol Yisrael kama. Okay, next one. Varei nazir, a person who accepted upon himself not to drink wine has to be careful with tumah. He has to grow his hair out. Rachmana Omar, he can't even have the seeds, the side, whatever, the skin of the grape. Usnan marvin l'nozeh. Yet he could benefit. He can make a tchum. You could take a bottle of wine, put it in a certain place, and say that's your residence, and from there you go 2,000 amma. Omar Zutra. So how could you benefit? It says in the Torah, Lo yoichel. Lo yoichel goes even according to Chizkiah. Chizkiah says it's such an interesting lashon. The Torah should have said Lo yoichal, and it says Lo yoichel, and therefore even Chizkiah agrees to Rebbe Avo that it means there's Isra Hana. So how could he have Hana from it? How can you make an Eruv out of wine? Shani Asam Lamakra Nizroi. Once again, the Torah gives us a special ribui that he could benefit from the wine. Nizroi, there's no Isra Hana. Shloyeh. Ravashi Omar, there's another reason, says Ravashi, which the Gemara is Doicha. Kadosh yeh gadil pera saroishoy. He's a Kadosh. He should grow his hair. Giduloi Kadosh ve'ein davar acher Kadosh. You take the hair, and when he brings the shlamim, you put it underneath the shlamim on the fire. The Torah is telling us that you're not allowed to benefit from the hair. But only the hair doesn't have benefit. Everything else, you could benefit from the wine. It's a diuk, says Rav Ashi. Says the Gemara, what kind of diuk is that? Midi ve'ein dava achik. It doesn't say anywhere that something else you could benefit. It just says this you shouldn't benefit from, including wine and other things. The Chartzanim also. Ela, machvartik Marzutra, we like Marzutra's pshat better because it says Nizroi, that gives us a special yitur that he's allowed to benefit. Another is allowed to benefit. Here we go. Barei Chodosh. What's Chodosh? Chodosh is the new wheat. In the time of the Beis Hamikdash, we would wait until the second day of Pesach and bring the Omer. What else is the Omer associated with? Sfiras Omer. But the carbon Omer allows us to use all the wheat that grew up until that point. Until you bring the carbon Omer, you cannot eat the wheat. And in our days, which is still a derais bisman hazeh, l'chayra, we have to wait until the second day of Pesach. We don't have an Omer. So you have to wait until the second day of Pesach until we can eat the previous crop. The Torah says you cannot eat chodosh from all the 5 grains. Ad etzem hayoyim hazeh. This is not a chumrah, this is a pasuk. You can't eat chodosh till this very day. Usnan koitzer l'shachas umachal behema. 2 halachas here. First of all, you could cut the crop when it's still young, it's not fully grown. In other words, for yourself, for a human being, you could cut it when it's shachas. Umachal behema, and you're allowed to feed the crop to your animal even when it's fully grown wheat. New, isn't that a heter hana? I'm giving it to my animal to eat, so I'm having hana from it. Omer Rav Shmaya, shani hasam do makro, kitzirchem. Kitzirchem shalochem yeh. Once again, there's a special pasuk that tells me that you're allowed to benefit from it. Everywhere else in the Torah, you can't benefit from it, but here in the Torah it says kitzirchem, it's yours. So even though it says the lashon of lo ysoichlu, yeah, that according to Rabavo that includes isra hana, over here kitzirchem, there's no isra hana. Vidach, and what about Chizkiah? He holds lo ysoichlu doesn't mean isra hana. So I don't need a special pasuk of kitzirchem to tell me you're allowed to benefit from it. So why does it say kitzirchem? They call Yisrael mashma again. One of these Dibur Torah Lashon Bnei Adam, Torah spoke like that. So I just want to mention, since we're mentioning Chadash, we just mentioned it a week ago, but there's a little bit of a confusion. I want to emphasize something. There's a new newsletter that comes out every week. Ara Merkaz. Nachman Seltzer writes there, my Chavrusa Yedidya, and whoever wants to be mishtatev, they're looking for people to be mishtatev. I want to thank Moshe Hirsch for putting this together. Yoel Bergman's mother edits, Moshe Hirsch's mother. Who else? Ari Bloom, amazing writer, amazing. Rabbi Schoenberg. It's funny that you mentioned Rabbi Schoenberg, because I think it was 2 weeks ago, Rabbi Schoenberg wrote a beautiful article about Chodesh. Basically went over what we discussed, but he explained it nicer. And I just want to say some of the points that he said to explain the other side, so to speak. So he said that in our days there's 2 crops. There's the winter crop and the spring crop. The winter crop is not such a problem. The spring crop is more of an issue, he says. And that's and different crops go for different things. So bread and pasta is usually made from the spring crop. And that's very problematic, because that's planted right after Pesach, and basically they harvest it in the middle of the year sometime, and it's chadash. It doesn't have, it's not muksher, so to speak, from the Omer, from Pesach. It's planted right after Pesach. So, and then he says also there's a lot of flour today that's a blend. The winter and the spring, they take the benefits of both. And most Paiskim don't differentiate between Chutz La'aretz and Eretz Yisrael. He goes on to say, however, the Baal Shem Tov, he took the Shita of the Bach, the Mekel, the one Shita that we know of, the Bach. Why? Most likely because of the sakana that existed in those days. There was no bread. If you were makban on Chadash, nothing to eat. Since bread comes from that grain, nothing to eat. So he made a kula with the bach. Now, the Ar Chasidim today that say the Baal Shem Tov had hoichen yanim, it wasn't as simple as you think that it's the sakana. There was other reasons. And memela, they're not makbid b'chlal today. He goes on to say, Reb Schomburg, that in our days, it's very hard to rely on the kula of the Ramah of Svek Sveka, because every product has a batch number, and you just look at the batch number, you can see exactly what grain it came from. So you can't say, oh, maybe it's from this grain, maybe it's from that grain. You just look it up and you see. And also, in our days, there's no real sakana like in those days. You don't have bread, fine, so you eat donuts, you eat something else. You don't need to have bread to sustain yourself. Shine. So that's basically the thing. But nachamal, according to a lot of poskim, it's issa d'oraisa, bezman hazeh, most poskim, and that's it. Do whatever you want to do. Reb Shlomo Zalman Auerbach says you're allowed to feed somebody that's not makbid. You're allowed to feed him. You're not over on lifnei iver. However, my bottom line is check out our Merkaz. It's a very nice publication. They're actually this week they're going to start featuring different people from different countries, who they are, who's the mishpach in other countries. Get to know people. And if you have a nice Dvar Torah or something, or you want to add, Akiva Solway, the kid, Akiva, you guys know Akiva, he's 11, 12 years old, he writes for children. We have Sapaznik who does cartoons and nice things for kids. Kids, it's a very nice book, check it out. V'arei shrotzim, just buy a lot of paper, because it's like 12 pages every week. V'arei shrotzim, the Rachmana Omar Sheket Zu Lo Yiyachel. Going down the line, now we're at shrotzim. What shrotzim? Oh, one of my favorite charts of all time. It came out so colorful and beautiful. Shrotzim, Shmona Shrotzim. Every time we talk about shrotzim, it does say tzav, and tzav in Hebrew means a turtle. No, it's not a turtle. It's most likely a toad. This is like the sheretz of all shrotzim is a lizard. Okay, here, take it. So these shrotzim, state in Torah, sheketzu lo yeyachel. So this again, this is according to Chizkiah also, this is a problem. No? Okay, we'll see. We won't see, but it says here, lo yeyachel. Lo yachal means Isser Hana, also Usnan. If you are somebody goes out there and catches food, now this reminded me immediately, Jonathan will understand what I'm talking about. My entire life, wherever I went, they would always ask me, Stefan, you related to Dagim Tuna? Dagim Tuna is a famous tuna fish company in America, if you're not familiar. And they always prided themselves that in their nets, even though they catch all these tray fish together with tuna, they never put the tray fish in the tuna. It's mamish, 100% kosher. Remember, I don't know if that's an issue today at all, but that was an issue back then. They even said there's rats that are in the ships together with the tuna. Just slip it in, in a non-dagim kit. It always made all the frum people want to buy dagim. So there's such a thing called, you're trying to trap fish, dagim fish, tuna, and in the trap, something else falls out there. And the Gemara says it happened by itself. Versus you went out to trap it. Mutarim lemachrim lemnachrim. You're allowed to have enough from that non-kosher animal that you trapped. And it says, Sheketzu lo yi'achel, you can't have any benefit from it at all. Shani hasam do makro lochem shelochem yiyeh. There's a special ribui that you're allowed to have enough from it. So why don't we have any frum guys going out there to trap swordfish, whatever, lobster? Shani hachadam akro you, ba'aviyasan you. Says the Gemara, there's an isser d'oraisa to deal with non-kosher animals. Did you know that? It's asur mid'oraisa to own, let's say, a McDonald's. It's asur. If it happens in your net, then you're allowed to benefit from it. Go out and deal with non-kosher food, isser d'oraisa, you. As is, there's always an isser. So Taisa says, how do you sell a horse? Jews sell horses, what? Oh, says Taisa, it's not for food. Very good. The minad achila mari dafka. Okay. Pigs, he goes into the whole thing, he calls them pigs, chazerim, he goes on and on about chazerim. Fine. Even if you get a Yerusha, you're not allowed to be megadelit. You got to get rid of it. Says the Gemara, the Torah says, lo yi'achal, according to Chizkiah, means don't benefit from it. And then it gives you a special word to say that you could benefit from it. Just write lo yoichal, forget it lo yi'achal in a funny way. Say it the normal way, lo yoichal, and then I don't have to come to lochem. Why do I need to say something and then undo it? Just don't say anything. This is exactly where I learned my idea from. The Torah says, lo yochel. Anytime the Torah says lo yochel, it means Isra'ana. It happens to be by Shratzim, it says lochem and allows you. But any other place that says lo yochel, it's also ba'ana as well. Barei chometz, derachman lo yochel chometz, and that should mean Isra'ana. V'tanya Rabbi Yossi Aglili Yomer Temal Atzmachai Chometz also ba'ana kol shiva. I'm wondering, why do you even think that it's also to benefit from chometz? Sell it, do whatever you want with it. If you remember, I don't remember exactly where it was. Here we go. I think it was here. Yeah. Daf Yomi Amud Beis on top. Over Zmani also ba'anasei pshita. Ask the Gemara, and Rashi says we're not going to the word pshita. It's not that pasha because we have Rabbi Yossi Aglili right here, who says you're allowed to benefit from chometz. Says the Gemara, to you, once again, a special ribui that you're allowed to benefit from sa'ar, levin, shechayeh. Rabbanon, who say, the chometz is also ba'ana, like we paskin, right? Shechayah taroya, avataroya shalacherim shagavaya. If a guy, acherim over here means a guy, if a guy gives you some chometz to watch for him, you're not over. It's his, not yours. So it's sitting on your shelf in your kitchen, some chametz, some pizza, it's okay. Shugovaya, if it's hegdish, also, you're not over. V'idach, trei lecha ksivi. So, just to make it a little simpler, this is the same pasuk. V'lo yira lecha chametz, v'lo yira lecha sar. This is in Shmais, but in Devarim you have a third pasuk. V'lo yira lecha sar. So here you go. The first drasha is lecha shalcha. Chachamim, they're blue. They don't learn from lecha shalcha because it's also bana. It's not lecha. You can't use it. So they learn that it's a guy. So what do they do with this lecha? So Rabbi Yossi Aglili is going to take this lecha and learn from here the halacha that they learned over here. That a guy, if a guy gives you chametz, great. So what are they going to do with the lecha? It's extra. They already learned the guy from the top lecha. So they're going to say that the second lecha comes to say there's two types of guy. One, you rule over him, Bizman HaMikdash, whatever you rule over him, and one day you don't rule over him. V'idach trei lecha ksivi. V'idach chad b'nocher shekibashtoi v'chad b'nocher sheloi kibashtoi. One day you rule over him. V'idach. No, so how does Rabbi Yossi Aglili learn this kibashtoi? Oh, guess what? There's a third lecha. Tlas lecha ksivi. Here, in Devarim. So Memela, so what do Chacham do? It's extra. Oh, one is leaven and one is chametz. As I was walking out, I brought a gift for the shir. This is how you make sourdough, Rabbi Yossi. I have no idea. I just see my wife using this. I brought it here. I'm assuming this is sa'ar. This is leaven. This is Gary wants some sourdough. That's what I understood. This is sa'ar. This is leaven. You see this stuff? All you need is a little bit of this, and this makes something else leaven, and makes something else leaven. Is this edible? Absolutely not. This is not edible. What is this? This is the most chametz thing in the world you could possibly imagine. Much more chametz than a piece of bread. A piece of bread has a minute amount of this, but this creates the chametz. No. This is the starter. This is how you make other breads. You need this. This has all the bacteria in it, all the geschmack, juicy bacteria. And if you don't have this, you can't make bread. This takes sometimes weeks to grow. The bacteria grows and grows and grows. And, here. And then you eat it. You love the more these geschmack bacteria go into your bread, the better it is. Fine. So this is tzrichusa because on the one hand, this is very, very chametz, but it's not edible. On the other hand, bread is edible, but it's not very chametz. Okay, fine. Each one has its pro and con. Says the Gemara, it says by chelev nevela. we had by the shchita, going back to the shchita, he showed us the chaylev that's mamish hamachasa, kerev, aklois, this fat layer of chaylev that's issa deraisa to eat. It says, Ye'asa l'chol malacha. It says loisay chaylu, first of all. Chaylev is asa to eat. Ye'asa l'chol malacha. You can take that chaylev and benefit from it. Do whatever you want with it. L'chol malacha. What does chol malacha mean? I would think that it's only okay for Beis Hamikdash. L'malacha said Ye'asa. Even an individual could use it. Divri Rabbi Yosef Glili. Rabbi Akiva Omer. It's pashut that it's mutar b'hana. So what's the chiddush here? Sheyachal l'melechas hedyot yeh tahar l'melechas gavoya tamei. Look, at the end of the day, it comes from a nevela. So a nevela should be tamei. So he's not talking about isser and heter. He's talking about tum and tahara. Whether or not this gives off a tumah. Could I go and smear a basket, a leather basket with this beautiful chaylev, and then put food in it? Tamei, tar. What's the halacha? Rabbi Yosef the Gemara just explains. I don't need a pasuk at all for tum and taira. To tell you whether or not I'm allowed to benefit from it. Why? Because the Torah tells you loisechelu. Loisechelu means they can't benefit from it. So the Torah says that later on. You could benefit from it. I don't know from there. If it doesn't say lo yi'achel, I don't know that it's also ba'ana. It says loisechelu. It doesn't tell me it's also ba'ana. So then why does the Torah say go do whatever you want with it? L'tumah v'tahara. Hold on. Very important thing fell down. Okay. Where's Dambi, by the way? Is he around? Did he drop out on us? Somebody get him back. We need him immediately. I never dropped. I was here every day. 402 days. My lab, COVID dropped out on him. You're blaming me. My lab, we're going to get to the sponsors in a second. Daf Yomi Beis. Rabbi Yosef is of the opinion. Maybe going back to the machlokes Rabbi Avo, Rabbi Chizkiah, and Chizkiah. That lo yisoichlu, it doesn't matter what lashon achila, it's always isra hana. And therefore, once I have a isra to benefit from it, the Torah has to say you're allowed to benefit from it. Kiva savar isra achila mashma isra hana lo mashma. When it says lo yisoichlu, lo yisoichlu is only not to eat. It doesn't say lo yiachal. V'chi asakra l'tumah v'tahara. So maybe that's the machlokes. Loi. The kulam lo yisoichlu mashma bein isra achila bein isra hana. At the end of the day, lo yisoichlu, everybody agrees. Perhaps it just means maybe. Maybe Rabbi Akiva agrees to Rabbi Avo that lo yisoichlu means isra hana. So what's the machlokes? Rabbi Yosef Glili Soba kishutra nevela hi hutra chelba v'gida lo hutra. I'm going to get there. No, don't worry about it. I'm going to say the sponsor in a second. When the nevela, when it says nevela, we had this yesterday, the other day. Nevela, does it include the chaylev and the gidim, the sinews, everything else, or not? Why? What's the shayla? Because they're not edible. Maybe. So when the Torah says you're allowed to eat a nevela, it means something that's edible, anything that's similar to meat. Not that you're allowed to eat. That you're allowed to benefit from a nevela means anything that's similar to meat. Chelba v'gida la yutru. There's no heter because it's not considered meat. And when the pasuk comes to tell you, the pasuk comes to say that you're allowed to benefit from it. Rabbi Akiva Savar, Keshehudra nevela, chelba v'gida nami hutru. Okay, it's included. And we're going to see soon. We're going to talk about yesh begida v'nois and tam. If it has a flavor, not just to mention it for a second. Okay, so Mamela, the pasuk comes for tum and tahara, and not for Isser and Heter. We just turned to the Chav Gimel Amud Beis, sponsored Lili Nishmas Ruchama Chaya Fruma Alei Shalom Bas Rabbi Pinchas Yibel Chaim Toivim, and Lili Nishmas Rabbi Chil Shragam and Avram Alevi Olav Shalom, and by Kalman from the 5 towns, Lili Nishmas Menachem Mendel Ben Simcha, and by the Fine and Pearl families in the Schus of Refuah Shleima from Mindel Elko Bas Edel. She should have Refuah Shleima. Zog the Gemara. Rabbi Yosef Glili, Ashkechon Chaylev D'Shayrach Mona Bahano. So we see we have a special heter in the Torah that says you're allowed to take chaylev. I don't know what a good word. It's not fat. It's the chaylev. Fat is something else. Chaylev the Shai Rachmana Ba'ana Ela Gid Name the Aser. So where do we see that Gid is Mutter Ba'ana? The Gid, the sciatic nerve, the sinew. On the one hand, you could say, yes, you're right. Gid Anasha, Gid is Aser. He learns the heter hana of a Gid Anasha from a Kavachomer. Chaylev that's so severe, you get kares. You lose years of your life. Yet it's mutar ba'ana, so it's not so strong. Gid she'enei yanish kares. There's no mention of kares by Gid Anasha. Loy kolshken, it should be mutar ba'ana. Reb Shimon the Osar. Now, what about Reb Shimon? Reb Shimon says that the Gid is also ikil mivrach malach chaylev sheken. How come he doesn't have a kavachomer? Ikil mivrach malach chaylev. We had yesterday that Reb Shimon holds ein begidim enoisim tam. There's no flavor at all. So what is he going to say? Malach chaylev sheken huta miklolei etzachaya. You know, chaylev is weak. It's just a weak isser. Why? Because the same chaylev that's usher in a cow is mutter in a deer. So it's a shvacha kind of isser. Toimer begid shelo yutim miklolei etzachaya. The gid anasha of a deer is usher. So you can't learn the gid from chaylev. Vidach bebehema kamrinan. I'm trying to prove a point in behemoths and domesticated animals. The gid is not mutter in any. The chaylev is not mutter in any behema. Memela, I can make a kavachomer to a gid. Says the Gemara. Okay, finally, we finished the whole list. Most of this list that I compiled. Maybe there's a few more things that we'll talk about. But the bottom line is, every pasuk that you pulled out and tried to prove to me that it's mutar b'hana, even though the pasuk says it's asa b'hana, and each and every one you went on to explain why it's mutar b'hana. This one says nizroi, this one says l'cha, this one says l'chem, trumaschem, whatever it is. The bottom line is, everybody agrees that all these things are mutar b'hana. So then where's the machlokes exactly? Says the Gemara, b'chametz b'pesach v'alibed rabbanon, b'shar niskal v'alibed divrei hakol. We're going to explain. Chametz on Pesach according to Rabbanon, and Shar Niskal according to everybody. Chizkiya nafik le miloi yachal. How do you get to these things? That you can't benefit from a Shar Niskal, a Shar that killed a human being, condemned to die, you're not allowed to benefit? Nafik le miloi yachal. You're not allowed to benefit? Is this or not? Rebavo nafik le minavela. So nevela, what? It says by nevela that you're not allowed to eat it, and then the Torah says, but you're allowed to benefit from it. But at the end of the day, there's still no difference. My beinayu. Eki beinayu. So the Gemara, this is the final thing. What in one mitzvah or aveir in the Torah, there's a difference. Eki beinayu chulin shenishchatu ba'azara. Remember the case. The guy didn't want to make a mess in his house. He wanted to find where's the most professional shochet in the world in the Beis Hamikdash. These kohanim are shechting day and night. So he goes, he brings his animal there. He doesn't tell anybody it's not a carbon. And then he has a perfectly shechted animal. They fillet it for you, they wash it off, and then he takes all the meat home. You got to throw it out. Chul and shenishchatu ba'azara is an isser to benefit from it. Chizki sovar lo yachel, but it doesn't say mufurish in the Torah anything about the isser hana part. Chizki sovar lo yachel lemu'utei hani. When the Torah says lo yachel, it comes to exclude chametz and shar haniska. Oisai. And by treifa, when the Torah says lakelef tashlichun oisai lemu'utei chulin shenishchatu ba'azara, that you're not allowed to benefit from chulin shenishchatu ba'azara. Rebavo savar oisai lemu'utei hani. The opposite. Oisai comes to exclude chametz and shar niska. Chulin shenishchatu ba'azara lav deraisa ninu einachanami. The isser to benefit from chulin shenishchatu ba'azara is not a Issa Deraisa. So that's the end of the story with them. That is the whole nafkamina b'chulin shenishchatu ba'azara. According to Chizkiya, it's Issa Deraisa to benefit from it, and according to Rebavo, it's not Asur. Yosef Omer Rabbanan Kamei Rabbi Shmuel ben Achmeni, B'Yosef Kamer Rabbi Shmuel Rabbi Shmuel ben Levi. So this Talmud Chacham said in the name of Rabbi Shmuel ben Levi. Menayin l'kol yisum shabbat Torah. We're doing a little bit of review of what we just learned. Where do we see l'kol yisum shabbat Torah d'chihechid asum ba'achila achinami asum ba'ana? Where do we know this idea that if it says in the Torah it's osur to eat, it's osur to benefit from? These two, because everything else we already established there's no problem to benefit from. Chametz b'Pesach, according to Rabbanon, is also b'ano. Shara niskal also b'ano. Minayin? What do you mean minayin? Tebek le'min lo yachal. It says mefurish lo yachal. Sai. That's a word in Yiddish. How do you say that in English? Sai, according to Chizkiah, and Sai, according to Ravo. Asur b'ana. Because it says lo yachal. It should have said lo yachal in a normal way. It says it in a funny way. So even Chizkiah agrees that means Isra no. No. Reb Shimon Levi doesn't hold of that. He's a chulik on everybody. Okay, so then let's go to plan B. Tepuk leim in nevela. What about nevela? The Torah says you're not allowed in nevela. Then the Torah says, you know what? You could give it to somebody that accepted upon himself, Shav Mitzvahs B'nei Noach, to the ger. You could sell it to the guy. But only in this specific case of nevela. Typically, when I say you're not allowed to eat it, it means you're not allowed to have enough from it. You're not allowed to benefit. But nevela, you're allowed to benefit from it. Savalak Rabbi Yehuda, the Omar, Dvarim Kichsavam. He holds like Rabbi Yehuda from the sugi of yesterday that the Torah is not telling you you're allowed to benefit from it. The Torah is saying how to benefit from it. First, you try to find the ger. If you can't find the ger, you give it, you sell it to a guy. Savalak Rabbi Yehuda, well, so it's very good. So if he holds like Rabbi Yehuda, let him go all the way with Rabbi Yehuda. This pasuk right over here. Says Gemara, so he needs the word oisai to tell us about chulin shenishchatu ba'azara. This oisai is not extra like Rabbi Yehuda. He doesn't have an oisai. He has to learn chulin shenishchatu ba'azara that the Isra Hana is d'oraisa. Minayin. So at the end of the day, how does he know Isra Hana in chametz and in sharas? Minayin d'chsiv. So we said yesterday, we mentioned this also. There's two chatois in the Beis HaMikdash. One chatos, he sprinkled the blood in the outside, I didn't bring the picture, but the mizbeach, the outer mizbeach. And the other chatois, there's a few, if you have, the famous one is the Yom Kippur. Sprinkle it inside. What happens if you take the outside blood, instead of sprinkling in the inside, on the outside mizbeach, you bring it inside, the ulam. What happens? The whole thing is bye-bye, it's garbage. It says in the pasuk, Kol chatos asher yuva midama. And it says, what's the end of the pasuk? Beish tisarev. What's the lashon over there? Lo yisei ochel ba'eish tisarev. That's the end of the pasuk. You got to burn it. Shein tam elohim beish tisarev. Why does the Torah tell me this? Uma tam elohim beish tisarev. It already says that you have to burn it in a different pasuk. So here we have a famous concept in the Torah. If you have a halacha that has absolutely no need over here, something that's similar, you got to use that halacha somewhere else. So I don't need it for this chatos. It says mefurish, you should burn. So learn it for chametz and shara and niskal. That's where we know chametz, shara and niskal according to Reb Shimon Levi. And if I don't need it to tell me that you can't eat the shara niskal, you can't eat chametz. Of course, the Torah already says lo yirei you're not allowed to eat chametz. Le'inyan le'isur hana. I guess we could stop right over here. Rabbi Isai, have a wonderful, wonderful day. You ready, Nachman? Yisrael